this next year, because as far as the Dos Rios project, as far as money expended on that, I think we've taken it about as far as we can.
Okay.
So what we can do is in-house, is my opinion, and we don't need to have a special budget allocation for that.
Okay. So, this is a philosophical statement presented for your consideration, which is no new or additional priorities are recommended at this time, given the necessity of completing our previous priority commitments and our need to focus on reducing debt and the projected flattening of revenues, to say nothing of whatever the state budget impacts would be, et cetera. But this is kind of where, from the executive office standpoint, where we're heading into the budget this next year. The next three slides are budget guidelines, and these are ones that we kind of developed within the executive office to guide as we're looking at the budget, as well as to provide guidance to department heads as they put together their proposals. And again, this is subject for discussion. The first guideline being that state and federal budget cuts will not be backfilled with county general fund dollars. That's something that we've done different things at different times for different departments. You know, just historical knowledge, any cuts to CalWORks payments to CalWORks recipients, the county never was in a position to backfill those. On the other hand, last year, when the library experienced last-minute significant cut, the county was in a position to backfill this. We want to go into this budget process saying we will not backfill. Certainly, that's something that can be looked at through the final budget process, but this kind of states where we're starting out from. And I think it gets at your comments around state mandates. If the state isn't funding something, it's very hard for them to mandate it. So,
To the board, I believe this is a policy decision that we must make, and it must be made at our level. Do I hear any disagreement with that statement? Corresponding expenditure reductions will need to be made.
With one exception. If the governor's, this budget summary says here that it looks like we're going to have impact the budget 6110, which is a library of $35,000, I think that should be you know, I'd like to see us try to hold the line on our libraries. I mean, if we can keep that, I agree with that policy, with the exception if we can keep the library, if it's only going to cost us $35,000 to keep our library stable, I'd like to see that left in there.
But it'd be nice.
It'd be
but,
nice.
We're gonna have to face reality here. And my opening statement was the pain is gonna be felt across the board in the county. And before I finish, as listed, there were 21 positions that are in jeopardy with a reduction in funding. What I don't want to see is funding reduced and the appropriate positions continue to be in place. If the funding goes away, the positions have to go away. That's not a nice thing to say. It's not an easy thing to say, but it's a thing that must be maintained. Otherwise, we're going to be creating a county teeter system where we continue to escalate out of control. And so all I'm saying is if the funding is reduced, it's going to relate to fewer personnel. Now, I know you made a suggestion about the library. I leave it up to the library director to maybe find a way to continue the services with $35,000 less. If not, then we take a look at, do we backfill that or not at that point? But we leave it up to the expert in the field to figure out a way to maybe present those services continuing. That's all my comment is. Let me go to David first.
Well, my only reaction to what you've said, Mr. Chairman, is that we did have an increase, substantial increase, about 13 or 14 months ago with our county attorneys. And I don't know that we enforced it. So making these kind of statements, which we made, that was to be tied into productivity measures, you'll recall.
Yes.
I don't know that we have followed through at all in that regard, and so I have to be a little skeptical, not of you, but of
Right.
our ability to follow it through. And I would suggest that I think there's a whole lot more fat in the body of attorneys in the county than there is in the body of the library. And so I would suggest we go, as Willie Sutton did, where the money is. And we still have time to do that.
And exactly, to back up that statement, I do believe that we are running a reduction in number of attorneys by 5 in the district attorney to date as a salary savings position. So to back up your comments, yes, it is timely that we do a time study, we do some type of study to back up our previous statements to the number of attorneys that are needed to get the job done. And I believe the district attorney has heard that, and that's why she's running with salary savings and vacancies. Now might be the time to see if that needs to be a permanent situation or not, and I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
To Tom.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick points. You'll see later on in Allison's presentation, we're talking about working cooperatively with the courts. And you do have, with your attorneys, a lot of what I would term windshield time. And that's the time it takes to get that attorney up to various locations in the county. So we will be exploring with the courts, making some productive changes in that area. The only caution I was going to offer to Supervisor Pinch's comments, although, when we talk $35,000 for the library, the sheriff could come in here and say he's going to be experiencing a 10% cut in the rural crime money, so he needs $50,000. So I think whenever we talk about any reduction, we do need some direction from the board, because everybody will come in just much like, people talk a lot about hiring freezes. I always laugh when I hear hiring freezes, because there's no such thing as a freeze. It's a slush, it's a Slurpee, it's a lot of things, but very few people have the guts just to say it's a hiring freeze and we're not filling positions. So I think that's what we're asking for, is for the board to have that philosophical discussion, because 10% reduction that some of these people feel it's inappropriate, and the sheriff will tell you just as strongly a case as well the librarian.
Okay, now to Supervisor
I agree
Pinch's
with
and
the
then-
policy of, that the state and federal budget cuts won't be backfilled with county general funds. But, the devil's in the details. For instance, if the state says we're gonna cut the library $35,000, and we say, well, we can't do that. But yet we have over $700,000 in out-of-county travel expenses. We have over $700,000 in building leases that we lease. Now, if we're gonna have a reduction in the amount of employees, say like 20 people, that's probably gonna be equivalent of maybe we can rearrange and get out of a building lease. So, and, that's why we hired Tom to be our CEO. I'm sure he's gonna look at all these probabilities through the course of the budget, but, the devil on this budget is really in the details. But there is, as Supervisor Colfax, I really feel there's some areas that can be cut, and what are priorities. Really, what is a priority? Is it to keep our library open, or to maybe allow some money for somebody can go to a 3-day convention in LA or someplace? So those are the things we're gonna have to make the choice. It's all about choices. But I think we have some flexibility.